Sometimes, the words we never say echo louder than the ones we do. We grow up, we move on, and somewhere along the way, we leave certain things unsaid. Not because we don't care, but because we don't know how, or we're afraid it's already too late. This is a letter I never got the chance to send, to a man I once misunderstood. A man I used to call Dad. If you're listening tonight, maybe there's someone in your life you haven't spoken to in a while. Maybe there's a feeling you've buried for too long. Let this story be a quiet space to breathe, to feel, and maybe to begin forgiving. Take a deep breath. The rain is here, and the night is still long. I found my father's journal, exactly 3 days after we laid him to rest. It was tucked away in the drawer of an old wooden dresser. Right beneath the family photo, he always kept face down. The leather cover was worn at the edges, and the pages inside had yellowed with time. But the first line was still clearly inked. If you're reading this, I'm probably gone. I sat frozen in the quiet house. Rain was falling in Seattle, soft drops tapping against the window pane. The dim glow of the desk lamp cast a warm light on my trembling hands. I'd never seen my father write much. For as long as I could remember, he was a man of silence, no hugs. No, I love you, and never around for the big moments in my life. He was the kind of man who, if you fell, would simply say, "Get back up." If you cried, he'd leave the room. And if you needed a shoulder, he'd hand you a chair. So when he passed, I didn't expect to find much, just a funeral, a short eulogy, a few tears, mostly out of duty, and that would be it, until I opened the journal. March 17th, 2003 today, my son left home. He didn't come back. I wanted to hold him a little longer, but stayed silent like I always do. Maybe he thinks I don't love him. Maybe he's right, because I've never really known how to love the right way. I turned another page, then another. Each sentence cut deep, not because the words were sharp, but because they came from a heart I thought had long gone cold. I never imagined someone like my father could write about feelings. I never pictured him lying awake at night, missing his son, or ever wishing, if only I were brave enough to say, "I'm proud of you." That night, I didn't sleep. I sat by the window, letting the sound of rain lull me back into memories I thought had long turned to stone. And for the first time in many, many years, I cried. Not because he was gone, but because it took me so long to realize he had always been right there beside me. I used to think I had nothing to remember about my father. No afternoons playing catch at the park. No fishing trips. No mornings where he drove me to school in that old pickup truck and slipped a warm pastry into my hand. I thought my memory was empty, until I began reading his journal one page at a time. November 7, 2005. He didn't eat dinner. His door stayed closed. I knocked once. No answer. I wanted to knock again. But I was afraid that if he opened it, I wouldn't know what to say. Suddenly, I remembered there was a long stretch of time when I never ate with him. I'd eat in my room, or wait until he was asleep to sneak into the kitchen. Not because I was angry, but because every time we sat across from each other, the air between us felt heavy. No arguments, no bitterness, just distance. I remember the way he looked at me back then, not coldly, but somehow lost. Now I understand. He didn't know how to reach out, and I never invited him in. There was one night when I was sick. High fever, sweat soaking through my back. I was too weak to call out. Sometime during the night, I heard the door creak open. He came in quietly, set a glass of water and a warm towel on the nightstand. I pretended to be asleep, but I felt him sitting at the edge of my bed for a long time. Then he whispered, "Just like your mom. Always hiding when you're hurting. Stubborn too. I don't know how to take care of anyone. Just don't die before I do, Lee. Okay." That was the closest he ever came to saying he cared. And there's one thing I've never told anyone. When I was 15, Lee, I came home late after a fight. My face was bruised, one eye swollen, lip bleeding. He looked at me and asked, "Did you get hit? Or did you hit someone?" I said, "I got hit, but I didn't run." He didn't praise me, didn't scold me, just nodded, pulled an ice pack from the freezer, wrapped it in a towel, and handed it to me. Fight if you have to, but don't ever hit someone. With what you carry from this house. I didn't understand that line back then. Now I do. In his journal, he wrote, "My greatest fear is that I've passed down the harshness I never learned how to fix." There was a night I heard him cry. Really cry. I was up late studying. It was raining. He was in the living room. He thought I was asleep. I came down to get some water, but I stopped in my tracks. He was sitting in front of Mom's photo, his hands trembling as he wiped the glass frame. Then suddenly, he broke down. Soft, broken sobs, the kind that come from someone who's carried pain for far too long. I didn't step in. I didn't say anything. And he never knew I saw. Now, reading the words he left behind, I no longer see him as a failed father. I see a man who was never taught how to love, but still tried to love in the only way he knew. Not perfectly, not the right way, but sincerely. I used to resent him for never saying, "I'm proud of you." Now I understand, he didn't have to say it. Because every time he stood quietly, watching me from a distance, that was his way of saying it. I just wasn't grown enough to hear it. And what hurts me the most now isn't that he's gone. It's knowing there were so many moments, so many chances when I could have stepped closer to him. But I didn't. I don't remember exactly when I started drifting away from my father. It didn't come with a stormy night, or a fiery argument, or tears, or a final goodbye. It came like the rain in Seattle, soft, slow, and cold enough that by the time you realize it, you're already soaked to the bone. The first crack appeared when I was 17. I failed to get into the school he had always hoped for, the one he once attended, the school he often called. the place that taught me how to stand on my own. I chose a different school, a different city, a different life. That night, when I handed him my acceptance letter, he glanced at it for a second, then set it down on the table. He didn't ask questions, didn't say congratulations, just turned away and said in an even voice, "It's up to you. You're grown now." But I could hear something small and aching being crushed in that voice. I wanted to ask, "Are you disappointed in me?" But I stayed quiet, because I was afraid that if he said, "Yes," I'd fall apart. And if he said, "No," I wouldn't believe him. I moved out 3 months later. No emotional goodbyes, no suitcase rolling down the driveway in golden afternoon light. Just a quiet Sunday morning. I packed everything into my car and stood at the front door. He was outside, changing the porch light. I said, "I'm leaving." "All right." He didn't look at me, just kept twisting the bulb in place. I stood there for a moment, hoping he'd turn around, hoping he'd call me back, hoping he'd say, "Wait, I have something to give you." But he didn't. He finished the light, stepped down from the ladder, dusted off his hands, and walked back inside. As if I had just said, "I'm going to the store." I drove away without looking back. And I told everyone, my dad doesn't care. He doesn't love anything but his own principles. But now in his journal, I found the entry written on that exact day he left. Didn't say much. I stood in the kitchen, watching through the crack in the door. He looked smaller than usual. I wanted to run after him, but I was afraid I'd cry. I've never hugged him. And today, I let another chance slip away. We didn't talk for the next 4 years. I didn't call. He didn't either. Not out of hatred, but because we both carried a fracture neither of us dared to face. I used to think, if Dad really cared, he'd be the one to call. And he wrote, if he really needed me, he would have called. The distance between us didn't come from some big, dramatic moment. It came from all the times we didn't speak, all the times we turned away, all the times we stayed silent when we should have stepped closer. And the most painful part is, we were both waiting for each other, but neither of us moved. I thought I had grown used to my father's absence. Thought I was tough. Thought I had buried all the sadness from the past. But I was wrong. Sitting here in the room he once lived in, with the rain falling quietly outside the window, and his journal still open across my lap, I realize I was never truly ready to understand him, and even less ready to forgive myself. I came across the entry he wrote on my birthday, the year I turned 20. I was away at school back then, and I didn't call. Today is his birthday. I've prepared myself in case the phone doesn't ring. I don't blame him. I understand. But still, there's this empty space I can't seem to fill. I went to the store and bought a small cake, the kind he used to like. Then I remembered he told me back in 8th grade that he didn't like cake anymore. So I saw myself in every word, raw and unfiltered. A son who only wanted to get far away, live a life of freedom. without ever thinking about the one who stayed behind. The one who stood at the doorway every day, waiting for a call that never came. I used to blame him for never saying, "I love you." But I never once said, "I miss you." Never called to ask, "What did you eat today?" Or simply came home, just to share a quiet meal together. Now it's too late. Too late to fix any of it. There was one page I couldn't keep reading when I saw it. I wish I knew how to say I'm sorry. I wish I could start over, from when he was just a boy. Maybe I passed on to him my own broken way of loving. A love that's cold, quiet, always pulling away. I sat frozen in front of that line, not because it hurt, but because I knew exactly how that felt. I'm doing it too. Loving the wrong way, living like a smaller version of him, quiet, distantly. Afraid to love anyone deeply enough to be hurt. This journal, it's not just his voice. It's a mirror, reflecting back the parts of myself I've been trying to brush off for years. I reached the final page. The handwriting was shakier, the words shorter. If you're reading this, I'm probably gone. Don't carry guilt with you for the rest of your life. I don't need your forgiveness. I just want you to know I was always there. And I never stopped loving you. Not for a single day. Then I broke down. Not because he was gone. Not because of all the things left unsaid. But because I had spent so many years not realizing this truth. Just because a love is unspoken doesn't mean it never existed. I used to think forgiveness was something you gave to someone else. But then I realized forgiveness is something you first have to learn to give to yourself. Because when you carry resentment, misunderstanding, or pain, the heaviest burden doesn't rest on the other person's heart. It weighs on your own. A few weeks after my father's funeral, I stayed in that wooden house, alone. I didn't turn on the TV. I didn't answer the phone. I just let the rain fall quietly on the porch, gently, and let his old journal open itself to me each day. Like a ritual I wasn't ready to rush through. I started doing things that felt unfamiliar. I opened every drawer, reorganizing the things he left behind. The worn-out tie he only wore the day I graduated. I read the little shopping lists he'd taped behind the fridge, groceries for me. Even though I didn't come home that year, I found an unfinished letter he never sent, his handwriting trailing off, like he meant to keep writing, but stopped. Son, I'm not good with words. But if you're reading this, then I hope you won't live your life the way I did. Don't choose silence. Don't make love something people have to guess. And if you ever have a child, please, let them know you love them from the very first day by. This time, I didn't cry, not like before. This time, I just sat there and smiled. Not a happy smile. Not a sad one either. Just a smile that felt like someone had quietly lifted a stone off my chest. After all these years, I walked around the house, opening every window he used to keep shut. I hung the old photo of Mom, the one he always tucked away in a drawer. I placed his old radio back on the dining table, the one he turned on every night, even though no one else was listening. And then, for the first time in years, I spoke out loud, Dad, I understand now. It doesn't mean I've forgotten the past. It doesn't mean he was right and I was wrong. It just means I stopped trying to place blame. Stopped trying to label those years as failures. I chose to see them like an old wooden house, weathered and cracked, but still a place that offered shelter. A father who didn't know how to say, "I love you," but who was always there. I'm no longer afraid of becoming him, because now I know I can keep the best parts of him and choose to do the rest my own way. And I've come to understand some kinds of love can't be fixed, but they can be transformed into something softer if we're brave enough to look back, not with anger, but with compassion. Dear Dad, if you're reading this then maybe I finally found the courage to write. And maybe you're no longer here to hear it. I don't even know where to begin. There are so many things I wanted to say, but swallowed instead. And maybe that silence turned me into someone I'm not even sure I want to be today. I used to blame you for so many things. For being too cold, too distant, too quiet. But now I understand. It wasn't that you didn't love me. It was that you didn't know how to love in the way I needed. I tried everything just to make you look at me. To make you proud, to make you say something. But you stayed silent. And I carried that silence like proof that I wasn't good enough. Now I see it. You didn't say much. But you showed up. You never praised me. But you quietly did everything you could. You never hugged me. But you kept my photos in your wallet. And the hardest part is, I only realized all of this when there was no one left to say, "I'm sorry." To Dad, if I could go back, I wouldn't try to make you like other dads. I'd learn to sit beside you in silence without feeling awkward. I'd ask you the little things, like whether you were tired today, and I'd tell you more about everything I've kept buried for so long. But I can't go back, and I know you can't come back either. So I'm writing this letter, not to be forgiven, but so you'll know I understand now. And I've stopped blaming you. Thank you for loving me in the only way you knew how. Thank you for staying, even when I was the one always walking away. Thank you, because even if you weren't perfect, you were still a real father. And if one day I become a father too, I promise I'll say, "I love you," out loud. Not because I'm better than you, but because I learned how to from your silence. Goodbye, Dad. I love you, and this time I'll be the one to say it first. If you're still here, thank you for staying with me and with this story all the way to the end. Maybe it made you think of someone. Someone you once loved, once resented, once blamed. Someone you once wanted to say something to, but didn't. Maybe you once wrote a letter, then tore it up, or never found the courage to write it at all. And maybe, just like me, you're still carrying something that only the night ever hears. All of us have a letter we never sent, a whispered, "I miss you," an unspoken apology, a hug that never happened, or simply a silence that's lasted far too long. If you're awake tonight, and someone comes to mind while listening to this story, I hope you'll be braver than I once was. Be brave enough to call, brave enough to write, or at the very least, brave enough to forgive them and yourself. You don't have to put it into words. Just leave a single dot in the comments if you've ever held on to a letter you never sent. And if no one's told you this today, let me be the one to say it. You're not alone. You're doing better than you think. And you are worthy of love, even in the parts of you you're still learning to forgive. Sleep well, okay? The rain will stay here with you through the night.